Hi, this is Linda with Overbrook Quilt Connection, and welcome to day 18 of Moda's Stitch Pink. Today the block is called Catch a Falling Star, and we're making a lot of flying geese, 16 of them. Now, let me show you this. The flying geese will measure 2 by 3.5, and you are welcome to use your own, whatever method you want to make them. But if you're using the method that is in the pattern, or from Moda, you will be doing the triangles and stitch and flip them back. When you do that, the traditional way is to press them away from the center triangle. But we have areas, we have 4 spots where you have 2 flying geese that are coming together like that. And so in order to nest those seams and make those points want to sync up with each other, I did 4 geese where I pressed them towards the center triangle instead of away. So that will allow those then to nest with each other on those points. Okay, the flying geese are the only component that we have to do prior to assembling our block. And I have it laid out here, and you're going to do it in rows. So you will have a top row that is a rectangle with a flying goose on either side of it with a square out on the end. Those will be your top and bottom rows. Then you'll have 2 rows that have this, the 2 geese with their bottoms sewn together, the background sewn together. And then you'll have 2 of your flower, or your star, I guess they're calling it a star. So 2 of the star centers, and then flying geese or star points on the outside edge. You'll do 2 rows of that. Then your center has rectangles on either side of it, and then 2 of those units where the geese are sewn together like that, and they will be on either side of a center background square. Okay, so it's just a lot of assembly. There's not, I mean, other than making the 16 flying geese and then squaring them up to the 2 by 3.5, that's not difficult. So I'm going to start assembling. When I get my rows made, I will come back and show you how to put the rest of the block together. I have the rows assembled. I had a little bit of issue with the pressing. On the pattern, you know, there are 5 rows, but on the pattern there's only 4 arrows, 4 rows of arrows showing you where to press. So I started at the top and went to the bottom. And as I got to the bottom, I realized, okay, if I start at the bottom, it actually gets pressed the way I want to press it, which is towards these big squares. So start from the bottom and press that direction because on your diagram, because that makes more sense. So we press towards the rectangle and towards the square, and in here we press towards the big squares. Okay, these that we are sewing together that had the nested points here, they fit together very nicely, very easily. But this seam on all of these do not nest up with anything later on. So press them whichever way makes your points look the best. The same with this row. These seams here do not nest with anything. So press them whichever way makes your diamond look the best. Or square and a square. It kind of has a square and a square look, essentially. Okay, we're going to sew our rows together. I also realized I did not say anything about squaring up. I have shown you squaring up half square triangles in previous blocks. So I didn't again. So I guess if you need a refresher on that, go back to, I think it was maybe even the second one. It was very early into our series. So anyhow, I'm going to sew the rows together and then I'll come back and show you the finished block. I realized as I started to sew the rows together that I didn't really show you the reference points as you're sewing your rows, your blocks into rows. When you are sewing these diamondy ones into the sides, you're actually sewing along the side where you've done your seam. So you want to put that, your seam should go right through where the angled seam comes down and the straight seam comes down. Where they cross, that's where you want your seam, your crosswise seam to go. Okay, then on, of course, your flying geese, you know, you always want that seam to be right where your two, right where the X is. You want it to go right on the inside edge of that so you don't cut off your goose. You can see that one. Then on these outside edges, I made sure to match my outer edge, the outer edge of my block, so that was straight. You know, let's face it, not every goose is perfect, and I'm going to show you this guy here. He's a little short. He didn't quite make it to 2 inches wide, and you can see that this, so that's another reason. I matched up here, and this guy's going to get evened up in the horizontal row seam. You're never going to know that that happened. Of course, if it's, you know, too bad, you'll, you know, I mean, you know, if you can't get a decent seam allowance, that's another thing. But this is an almost okay seam allowance there. So anyhow, I just want to give you some reference points as you're putting your rows together. Our block is done, but I want to show you a few more tips. The geese that were pressed towards the background, you don't have that X of the thread as a reference point, but you do have a bump there, and you have one thread that comes down. So because of that kind of a bump where those seam allowances cross, your needle kind of wants to stay off of that, kind of wants to ride along that channel beside that little bump. So it actually went pretty good. This actually was a good sewing day. I didn't lose any points, and my bobbin didn't run out before I got done with the block. So I call that a win. When I was ironing, when I was pressing these seams, I rarely do this because it just kind of looks like a mess. But these seams here, they just do not want to fold back on themselves at all. I know some people will clip their seam allowances to make that happen, and perhaps that's a little better than having a fold there, and I may go back and do that at some point. But for now, here's our block. Block 18, Catch a Falling Star. You know, when we were putting it all together, it kind of looked like flowers, or it didn't really look like 4 stars, but now that it's all sewn together, it certainly does look like 4 stars. So, I hope you have a good time with your block. I hope some of these tips were helpful. We'll see you back tomorrow for block 19.